Hello, watch enthusiasts. Today we're starting our first YouTube video on vintage watch auctions, basically scanning online catalogs and highlighting the watches that we think are interesting. We're mainly going to cover vintage pieces, maybe some neo vintage, and we hope to do this regularly. So if that's what you're interested in, we would really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button so you can get regular updates on interesting lots and vintage watch auctions. The auction we want to highlight today is the Bruun Rasmussen wristwatch auction that will happen on January 29, 2025. This Danish auction house is part of the Bonhams network, so you can also access the online auction through Bonhams' website. We'll provide the link to the auction in the description below. So today, we're going to highlight a few lots from this auction. We're going to start with an Omega Marine chronometer wristwatch from 1977 with a case size measuring 33 by 45 millimeter. I know how some collectors feel about quartz movement, but this one is not just any quartz movement, it's a megaquartz movement. At the time of its release, the Marine chronometer model was among the most expensive watches Omega sold, which used a cutting-edge technology that has just been made available at that time. And that is because this megaquartz caliber 2400 is known as one of the most accurate wristwatches ever made. The Marine chronometer designation that you can't miss on top of the dial is typically reserved for shipboard navigation instruments. Its groundbreaking precision was measured in seconds per year, not per day like other quartz watches at that time. Due to the complexity and cost of manufacturing the megaquartz movement, Omega produced relatively few Marine chronometer watches, making them rare and collectible today. The case shows wear consistent with its age and use, basically in a pretty honest condition. The dial looks perfect, and that shade of blue really resonates with the 1970s. The watch has initials HR engraved on the case, indicating the previous owner. What's unique about it is that it's engraved on top of the part of the case as opposed to the backside of the case. And also, it's engraved upside down, so it's intended to be displayed not for the wearer, but rather for other people to see. Not sure how buyers will feel about that, but it's interesting regardless. It comes with a few things included, such as the original box, purchase receipt, and certificate from 1977. Some say papers are worthless, but we know there's a niche segment of collectors who value all papers that go with watches. The watch is estimated at approximately $2,100 to $2,500 plus buyer's premium. It is currently tracking at $1,500 plus buyer's premium. The next lot is a Rolex Air-King precision wristwatch, reference 5500, dating back to the 1969, which comes in a 34mm case. As you may already be aware, the Air-King series was first introduced by Rolex in 1945 as a tribute to the British Royal Air Force pilots who flew during the World War II. It was designed as a robust, simple, reliable watch and originally marketed as an affordable entry point for Rolex. Certainly different than the modern era Air-King in terms of design simplicity. This particular reference 5500 was launched in 1957 and remained in production for over 3 decades, making it one of Rolex's longest running models. The case design is pretty classic and timeless, with a 34mm case size that was typical for men's watches of that era. The case appears to be polished, but still retains the good shape of the watch. The dial has a soft and relatively even patina, which seem to turn into a cream color in different angles of the picture. The patina on the hands also seem to match the dial. Some of the lume plots, however, have turned black, as you can see at the 11 o'clock. This is certainly something that buyers have to be aware of. The correct crystal for this model should be the plexiglass, which appears to be the case, so it's less prone to shattering than modern sapphire crystals. The watch includes a riveted steel oyster bracelet, which bears the reference 7205 with 57 end links. This appears to be the correct period bracelet combination for this watch. This 1969 model features the caliber 1520, which lacked chronometer certification as opposed to the caliber 1530 that's used in chronometer certified model that's less common. Accompanying the watch are the period correct Rolex box, an additional link, and a warranty paper dated 1969. The watch is estimated at between 2,800 to 3,600 US dollars plus buyer's premium, currently with no bidders, with a starting bid at 2,800 US dollars. The next lot is a 36mm Rolex Datejust reference 1603 dating back to 1970. We can all see that the dial has been, quote unquote, artistically customized with a tiger motif by an independent artist that's not affiliated with Rolex. The 1603 was introduced in the early 1960s and produced through the late 1970s and was offered with numerous dial variations including silver, champagne, black, but certainly not originally offered with a tiger dial like this. As with 1603s, it comes with the engine turn bezel, which was one of the most distinctive features of the 1603. Something that aftermarket dials or bezels can diminish its value and authenticity, and most collectors probably agree that a completely original watch is almost always worth more than one that has been modified. I think it's usually fair if watches with aftermarket dials are accompanied by the original dial so buyers can have it reinstalled if they wish. But that's certainly not the case here. The tiger painted on the dial seems to be a bit off in terms of positioning. It's not centered and slightly a bit to the left. Not sure if that's an honest mistake or if it's because the date window is occupying the space to the right. Anyways, just minor observation. As you can see here, a lot of the lume plots have turned black. I think I read somewhere that the dials painted like these can affect the lume colors, and it has to do something with the chemicals. In terms of pricing, the watch is estimated at between 2,800 to 3,600 US dollars plus buyer's premium. So the same as the previous Air-King. It already has 7 bidders and is currently tracking at 2,400 US dollars plus buyer's premium. The next lot we want to highlight is a Vacheron Constantin reference 6562, which is a 35mm steel timepiece from the 1960s. Yes, it's a steel. You heard that right. Unlike many Vacheron Constantin watches from that era, which were typically crafted in precious metals, the reference 6562 features a stainless steel case. The example here has a silver sunburst satin dial, so it's very classic minimalist, I would say. And also the Dauphine hands make it very appropriate for a classic from the Holy Trinity of watches. We found that some versions of the 6562 has no date complication. The no date ones are less common, and as you can guess, are more desirable for collectors. This example, regardless, is still an interesting piece. The case appears to be in good condition and may have been previously polished. I really like the size of the winding crown. I think it's the perfect size. The dial seems to have beautifully turned into a warm cream color, but there seems to be water intrusion on the edges of the dial. It appears to be on the side where the crown is located, and that's usually where the water can get inside the case. The strap is certainly not original to the watch and is not Vacheron Constantin-like. I feel the watch would go very well with an exotic shiny leather that complements the soft dial color. The watch is estimated at 3,500 US dollars plus buyer's premium. It is currently tracking at 2,900 US dollars plus buyer's premium. The next lot is a Rolex Yacht Master reference 168623. It's a two-tone 18-karat gold and steel 35mm mid-case size watch from 2005. So we're talking about neo-vintage era here. You may recall that the steel rhodium version of this model is worn by Charlie Sheen in 2.5 Men. But here's why I think this is a good example of unisex watch by Rolex. I'm talking in terms of its 35mm size, but also in terms of design. The lugs in the Yacht Master are more curved and soft compared to the other professional models from Rolex like Explorer or Submariner, which I think makes it appealing to women. Obviously, the bezel for Yacht Master rotates bidirectional, unlike Submariner, for example, that only rotates counterclockwise. In terms of the condition, it's a newer watch compared to the previous watches we discussed, so the dial is in perfect condition, and that's pretty much expected for a watch this age. The rehaut, as you can see, is not engraved, and that's because Rolex only started engraving their rehaut back in something like 2005, which means that this is probably one of the last series without engraving on the rehaut. The gold in the bezel seems to start to tarnish a bit around the numbers, which I believe is a common issue with precious metal bezels like these. And if you prefer to polish it, you can only polish the bezel so many times before the raised minute marks on the bezel starts to level with the base of the bezel. At that point, you'll just have to replace the bezel entirely. Just some small anecdote from the owner of a similar model. The watch is estimated at between $5,700 to $7,000 plus buyer's premium. It is currently tracking at $5,700 US dollars plus buyer's premium. The last slot I want to highlight is the Omega Geneve reference 166037 from 1958. This watch has a 35mm 18-karat gold case and also comes with what appears to be an original Omega Milanese bracelet, also in 18-karat gold. This particular reference started production in the late 1950s in an era when Omega gained significant prominence, being the official timekeeper for the Olympics and later chosen for NASA space missions. While this specific reference wasn't used in space or anything like that, it represents an era where Omega was on the rise in the world of watchmaking. The case here seems to be in a very good condition. We're talking about pretty sharp lugs, yellow gold color, and the case that has a patina that matches the indices as well as the mesh bracelet. The mesh bracelet in particular looks like it's aged to perfection. You can tell from the case and the bracelet that the previous owner probably took a good care of this watch. In terms of the dial, the picture seems to indicate dark shades to the dial surface, which I think is probably just a reflection, hopefully not a dent on the dial. Other than that, the dial looks pretty immaculate. The watch is estimated at between $2,900 to $3,600 US dollars plus buyer's premium. It is currently tracking at almost $3,000 US dollars plus buyer's premium. So, that's the end of a few highlights on this auction. If you have any thoughts or takes on these watches, and if there's any other pieces that you think is worth highlighting, please provide your comment below. Thanks for watching, and until next time.